Good day, folks. Welcome to another edition of Lumberjack Logic. I'm here with Eli Crane, Congressman Eli Crane. I was so happy when you won.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, and I thank you for your service.
Yeah, no, thank you, dude. I appreciate you and everything you're doing.
Thanks. And I mean, you were obviously, for those who don't know, you were a Navy SEAL,
Yep.
which is, give me like 30 seconds on that, because I've seen your pictures up here, Buzz, all the training and everything, and just tell me just briefly, like what that meant to you and your formation of how you view Congress.
Yeah, well, I keep those pictures on the wall to remind me of how soft I've really become, and some of the stuff that I was allowed and able to do in the past, and how blessed and fortunate I am. But it's a good reminder that we still have men and women, who sign up every day to serve this country, and how important it is, to make good decisions up here, because so much of our American blood and treasure and their lives and, our economy is based on whether or not we make wise or stupid and foolish decisions up here.
Yeah. Tell me this too. The military recruitment's been down.
Yep.
This a big initiative of Trump's is getting woke out of the military.
Yep.
So how quickly do you expect to see recruiting turn around, and how is he going to go about doing that?
Well, yeah, first of all, I've already talked to young men and women that were on the fence about joining the military, that now President Trump has been elected, are rethinking that decision, so there's a lot of young men and young women who are very smart out there, who understand that a lot of their fate and their own life may be put in the hands of, American leadership. They want that leadership to be strong, but they also want that leadership to have a track record of not getting us into forever wars, right? Yeah. And so I think another big part of recruitment is going to be based on whether our military goes back to its focus on lethality, or whether it's focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And unfortunately, that's been the trajectory of our military for a long time. I saw a little bit of it right before I left, and it's just exploded. And so Pete Hegseth's nomination, I think, is very important. I do feel pretty good about it. And so we'll see what happens with that nomination in the Senate coming up here. But I think that's going to be a big part of our recruiting issues.
Now, going back to the Obama time, I mean, he did a good, I don't want to say a good job, but for himself, a good job. For us, it was a terrible job for America. But he was into really getting rid of generals that just didn't agree with him. So how much of the military has been captured? So how do you then resolve that? Do you just have to fire a bunch of people, or?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. It's recruiting patriotic people. I think we lost a lot of patriotic people over the last 4 years, especially during the COVID, era, where my little brother was one of them. He was 19 years in the Marine Corps officer, a Cobra pilot, who was actually getting ready to retire and wouldn't take the jab. And so he, basically was forced out of the military, lost his pension, lost everything. We lost a lot of patriots during that time. And I think so much of it is, going to be able to recruit a new wave, new era of patriots that love this country, don't want to serve in some politicized military, just want to go and serve their country. They love this country, but another part of it, to your point, is actually holding individuals accountable who have drank the Kool-Aid and just gone along to get along, been ticket punchers, and have done everything in their power to make rank. And I've met a lot of them, especially up here. The higher ranking ones are the worst. I can tell you that, and it's not easy for me to say that. I come from this community. Yeah. I love many of the people that I serve with, and I even know some of them that are pretty high ranking. But I've talked to many generals and admirals up here in oversight hearings, or just hearings on foreign issues that we're dealing with, and I've confronted many of them and asked them, hey, what are you guys doing about all this diversity, equity, and inclusion, and getting the focus and the priority off of lethality and being the baddest fighting force that the U.S. military can produce? And you know what they'll tell me? First of all, many of them will deny that it's even a thing, and then the ones that answer you will often tell you diversity is our strength, right? And it's like, I can tell you guys that when I joined the military is not a place it's not a social experiment. There are people that weren't allowed to join our military because they had flat feet, or because they had asthma, or because they were colorblind. So it's not like, hey, anybody's welcome. We need the best of the best in our military, and most of us, we don't care who you pray to. We don't care what color you are. You know, if you can do the job and do it well, we want you to be a part of that brotherhood. But it's gone completely off the rails, and I think it's one of the reasons that you're seeing recruitment completely crumble. And I think it's one of the reasons that we lack a lot of the respect that we used to have around the world.
And so you're Arizona, you're a border state. Trump's talking about deploying troops to the border.
Yep.
Do you think, number one, that the Republican Congress has the strength to stand with him, and that the American public has the stomach for it?
So I think that there's a good chance on your first question. I won't hold my breath. There's a lot of weak Republicans up here. You guys know it. You've seen it. As far as will the American public have the stomach for it, I don't know the answer to that, and I'm a little skeptical. I think that mainstream media is going to do an amazing job of following ICE around and getting video clips and footage of, us deporting people. I think they're going to turn it into a propaganda campaign, and I'm highly skeptical that the American people have the stomach for that, even though I think many of them know, and we just saw it in our last election, in their heart of hearts, that, many of these folks need to go back to where they came from. And listen, most Americans don't care. Most Americans actually, respect and even welcome legal immigration, right? Where you actually go through the process. And we have a lot of respect for people who do that. Many of us know, and love people that have done that. What we don't have a respect for, what we don't tolerate, is people that jump that line and come in here illegally and then expect every handout under the sun. And we know we can't afford it. We know it's not right to those who are waiting in line, going through the process, doing it the right thing, doing it the right way. And that doesn't even touch the issues that we have with crime, that we have with terrorism, that we have with, drug overdoses in this country. So it's one of the biggest reasons the American people, and I would even argue that many groups that President Trump might not have usually had support from, finally said enough is enough. Every city's become, every town's become a border town, and this is way out of control.
Well, and I think what you said there is so true, and the fact that right now the speed of this operation is going to be the key, and that's why the support from Congress becomes so important.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm a part of the House Freedom Caucus that can, probably the strongest conservative group up here in Washington. That's why we have advocated for a two-step reconciliation process where we bank the president wins early in the first step, and we're able to get Tom Homan, the border czar, the money and the support and the resources he needs right off the bat, because speed is so important here. Like if you don't think that if we do this one big reconciliation process that takes us 5 or 6 months to get done, and that's how long it'll take to get done, how many more Americans are going to get lit on fire or pushed off a subway platform or murdered or raped by somebody who wasn't supposed to be here? That's number one. And then number two, when you look at the propaganda campaign that we all know the mainstream media is going to launch over the next 5 or 6 months, that's just going to weaken those in our parties, whether elected officials or they're just regular citizens who have the mainstream media propaganda campaign that's going to pull at their heartstrings, and to where they're like, okay, I don't want any more of this. I no longer support everything that President Trump ran on, the national mandate that he got, etc.
Maybe the voter rolls or the H1B, the CBP brought up down.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of concern about that, about not even having the data to match on illegal immigration right now.
Being added to like the voter rolls and stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I know that I heard Kristi Noem say that CBP One app will be gone on day one, that she takes that office if she gets nominated or confirmed, I should say. And I know she's going to hold on to as much data that she can, but let's be honest, a lot of these individuals, they're not giving their real names. Many of them are giving, thousands of them will give the same address, right? And so even if you have data, but it's not good data, it doesn't, it's conflicting and it doesn't matter as much. And so that's another problem with this CBP One app or this concierge service app that, Secretary Mayorkas and President Biden rolled out, and it's a problem. And President Trump, Stephen Miller, one of his advisors, who's been one of the biggest border hawks in the country for a long time, and Tom Holman definitely have their hands full. But that's why, to your point, it's so important that we give them the support, here in Congress that they need to carry out the job.
100%. And what would be your top three, right? Like right now, like you're just looking at the next few days and you're going, what are your top three things that you want to, what are your objectives right now?
Well, obviously, I think securing the border has to be the number one thing for some of the reasons that we've gone over. I think our biggest responsibility outside of protecting unalienable God-given rights is to protect the American citizens, right? And so you can't do that without a secure border. When I look down, at many of the other, crises that we have here in the country, I would have to say, I think we need to definitely end the war in Ukraine. I think that's been so problematic. I think, escalating, World War III, I think it's arrogant. I think it's very foolish. And so I think that has to happen. And I also think that we need to get President Trump's team installed immediately, because he cannot do everything. There are so many problems, so many departments. He's one guy, and if we don't get his people in the right places, he's going to be hamstrung and not able to carry out effectively, his promises to the American people. And the last thing that I'll say is, I'm a fiscal conservative up here. I think one of the biggest, things that we have to do is we have to bend the spending curve up here. Like, the spending up here is so out of control. It is just so out of control. I think every 100 days, 120 days, we're spending $1 trillion of money we don't have. There's no appetite to quit spending money up here. We're $36 trillion in debt, and this house of cards is gonna collapse sooner or later. And so, my message to the American people, hey, we're going to support the president. He has a very robust agenda, but one of the things that has to be a part of that agenda is spending cuts. So, there's plenty of areas to do it, and there's several of us up here that are, really advocates for, spending cuts. And so I hope the American people get loud about that. I hope they recognize, where this thing eventually heads or eventually leads, and I hope they get behind efforts to actually trim some of the fat up here.
Well, Representative Crane, your agenda, those three ideas, that's exactly what I would hope he would say. So Thanks so much. Thanks for your service.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for serving in Congress now.
Appreciate George and what you guys do. This is a team effort, man. This is a team fight. It's like we can't win up here in DC unless we win the narrative. And so what you guys do, on social media, on YouTube, all the content you guys create is so important, because, and this is one of the cool things going on right now, as the mainstream media is being busted up and nobody trusts them anymore. They're turning to guys like you for their information, their news, etc. So thank you guys for doing what you do. And this is like I said, it's a team effort, and we all got to stay in this fight.
Can I get one question from you real quick? So, knowing your background as a Navy SEAL in protection and lethality,
right.
One of the things that I'm still concerned about is just the protection of President Trump going forward after what happened in Butler. Are we going to see investigations into that? Because it feels like there's been no transparency, which is frightening given what happened and the breach of security. So, do you foresee investigations and answers coming out regarding that? And how safe is he going to be given that Secret Service, the FBI, there's a lot of bad apples? I'm
actually glad you brought this up, because I was with the president down in Mar-a-Lago. About 20 of us from the House Freedom Caucus went down to talk to him about 2 weeks ago. And the one thing that I brought up with the president was my concern for his safety. Not only with the threats that have been allowed into this country over the last 4 years, but also with how technology and warfare is rapidly changing around the world. That, coupled with the reforms and the failures of the Secret Service, have me greatly concerned. And so I won't go into his answer and tell you what he said, but this is something I take very seriously. As a matter of fact, last Thursday before I left town, my staff set up a meeting with Capitol Hill Police and several other government agencies that were in charge of security for the inauguration, because that was a big concern of mine as well. And we went over some of the threats, some of the vulnerabilities, and all I can tell you is I'm very glad that inauguration was moved inside. though I am disappointed for the American people who wanted to witness the most historic comeback in political history.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all we gotta do is get him in there, but I appreciate people like you looking out for him. So
Absolutely. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
No,
Thank you,
thanks
sir.
a lot.
Yep.
Yeah. Section 230